The next night fell heavy and cold. The castle of Ilarion was quiet, yet the silence was not peaceful. It was the kind that listens, the kind that breathes. Every torch flickered, as if whispering secrets to the walls. Kyle woke before the moon climbed high. He could not sleep. His dreams had been strange. He saw mirrors breaking, water rippling, and someone wearing his face smiling from the dark. When he entered the washing hall, Queen Seraphine was already there. Her long black gown shimmered faintly in the dim light, and her silver crown reflected the glow like ice. She was kneeling beside one of the basins, her hands deep in the water. Kyle bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," Seraphine did not look up. "The castle remembers you," she said quietly. "It spoke your name last night." He hesitated. "My name?" "Yes." She lifted her eyes, and he saw a strange sadness there. "Names have power here. Once the castle speaks it, it marks you. It means you are no longer just passing through." Kale stepped closer. "Then I suppose I belong here now?" "Perhaps," she murmured. "But belonging to this place is not a gift, Kale. It is a chain." He looked around the hall at the basins filled with silver water. "Then let me carry part of that chain," he said softly. Seraphine studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time since he had come, she gave a faint smile. Small, but real. "Very well," she said. "Then you must learn not only to wash with your hands, but with your heart." That night became his first true lesson. Seraphine taught him how to listen to the castle. She placed his hands in the basin and said, "Close your eyes. Do not fight the voices. Let them show you what they need you to see." Kyle obeyed. The water felt colder than before, but soon images began to form in his mind, flashes of memory not his own. He saw a great hall filled with light, a crown of gold upon a smiling woman's head. He saw that same woman standing in rain, her crown turned to ash. Then he saw her whispering to a mirror that did not show her reflection, but another, a man's reflection, tall and crowned with shadows. Kyle gasped and pulled his hands away. "I saw something," he said. "A man. Like a king, but his eyes were hollow." Seraphine's expression turned still. "That was the beginning of the curse," she said quietly. "The one who was my promised king tried to take the world into the mirror's realm. I refused him. He cursed the throne, saying my reflection would rule me forever. Since that day, my shadow has not belonged to me." Kyle looked at the floor, where her shadow lay stretched and alive, moving faintly even when she did not. "Does it still obey him?" "Not obey," she said, "but it remembers him. And that is worse." Kale's heart ached at the sorrow in her tone. "Then maybe," he said softly, "it can forget." Seraphine's eyes met his, cold at first, but touched by something warm. "You speak as if time still heals," she said. "Here, time only repeats." In the days that followed, Kale worked beside her in silence. He scrubbed the ancient dishes, polished the old blades, and whispered the cleansing words she taught him. Sometimes, when their hands touched by accident, the water rippled brighter. The castle seemed to breathe easier when they worked together. But each night, after she left, Kale noticed strange things. His reflection in the water no longer followed his movements. When he smiled, it stared. When he frowned, it smiled back. One night, unable to bear it, he leaned over the basin and whispered, "Who are you?" The reflection blinked, once, slowly, and then its lips moved. "I am who you were," it said, in a voice that was not sound but thought. Kale stumbled back, the water splashing. The basin stilled, but the words echoed inside his mind like a cold wind. The next evening, he told Seraphine what had happened. "You saw your reflection speak?" she asked, her face unreadable. "Yes," Kale said. "It said it was who I was." She turned away, her gown trailing across the floor like smoke. "Then the curse has noticed you," she said softly. "It means you carry something it desires." "What could that be?" he asked. "Hope," she said simply. "The one thing this castle cannot create." He frowned. "Hope feels small against curses." Her eyes softened. "Small things are often the ones that save us." Then she looked toward the mirror that hung above the throne room's end. The surface rippled faintly as if listening. The mirror realm is waking, she whispered. It always does when someone pure enters this place. Kyle did not understand, but he felt the tension in her voice, the fear of something old. Then let it wake, he said again, echoing his words from before, but this time, Seraphine did not answer. That night, the castle changed, the torches burned blue, and the corridors stretched longer than before, bending like dreams. The portraits on the walls whispered as Cale passed. His footsteps sounded not one but two, a faint echo following just behind him, always a breath late. When he reached the washing hall, he found the basins already full, though he had not filled them. The water shimmered brighter, reflecting the moon through cracks that weren't there before. He leaned closer and froze. From within the water, his reflection was standing tall, wearing a crown made of shadow and light. Its eyes glowed faintly, and its voice rose inside his thoughts. "You clean what is broken," it said. "But you forget that some things were meant to be whole." Kyle's breath caught. "Who are you?" The reflection smiled. "I am what the queen buried when she cursed the mirror. I am the king that once was. And you, Kyle, are my vessel." He stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, I'm just a man. I came here to serve, not to rule." The reflection tilted its head. "And yet she looks at you as she once looked at me. You feel it, don't you? The pull of the throne, the ache of her sorrow. You are not here by chance. You were brought." Kyle wanted to deny it, but a strange pressure filled the air, as if the castle itself was listening, waiting for his answer. Then the reflection's tone softened. "Take my hand," it whispered. "Free her from her curse. Take back what was stolen from both of us." For a moment, Cale saw Seraphine's face in his mind, her lonely eyes, her quiet grace, her sorrow bound by duty. But then he remembered her words. "Be careful with your kindness. It wakes things that should sleep." Cale stepped back. "No," he said firmly. "Whatever you are, I am not yours." The reflection's smile faded. "Then you will learn the cost of disobedience." The water exploded upward in a storm of silver light, and Cale fell backward. When he opened his eyes again, the reflection was gone, but the shadow behind him was no longer his own. The next morning, Seraphine found him sitting alone in the great hall, his eyes hollow and tired. "You saw him," she said. Cale looked up slowly. "The Mirror King?" She nodded. "That is what he calls himself now. Once he was the man I was to marry, but power devoured his heart. When I refused to join him in his hunger, he cursed my reflection, and his own spirit was trapped within the mirrors. Why me?" Kyle asked. "Why not one of your ghosts?" "Because you are still alive," she said quietly. "And because you remind him of what he lost, his humanity." Cale clenched his hands. "Then I'll fight him," Seraphine shook her head. "You cannot fight what lives inside you. You can only resist it. Every choice you make, every kindness you show weakens him. But if you falter," she looked toward the mirrors, "he will rise again, through you." That night, Cale worked alone again. The basins were calm. The air was cold. But when he looked into the water, his reflection no longer moved on its own. It simply watched him, quiet and still, as if waiting. He dipped his hands into the basin, whispering the cleansing words she had taught him. The water rippled softly, then calmed. He thought of Seraphine's loneliness, her endless duty, and how the castle held her like a prison. He thought of the faint smile she had given him when he said he would help her, and then softly he said to his reflection, "If you can hear me, then hear this. She is not yours. She is her own, and I will not let you use me to hurt her." For a moment, the reflection's crown flickered and vanished. High above, in her chamber, Queen Seraphine opened her eyes. The mirror beside her bed rippled, showing two faces, hers and Cale's, side by side. She whispered, "He has begun to fight." The reflection in the mirror smiled faintly. "Yes," it said in the voice of the Mirror King, "and that is how he will—" The road to the obsidian castle wound like a black serpent through a valley of bones and mist. The kingdom of Ilarion had long fallen silent, its rivers dry, its cities hollow, and its people forgotten. Only one light remained in the land, the cold flame that glowed in the windows of the queen's castle, where time itself refused to move forward. For 3 nights and 3 days, Cale walked through the gray woods until he reached the great iron gates. His cloak was torn, his boots filled with dust, and his hands bled from carrying the sword he no longer had reason to use. Once he had been a knight, proud, loyal, and full of dreams. But dreams had turned to ash when his kingdom fell. Now he was only a man searching for purpose in a world that had forgotten mercy. The castle guards were not men. They were pale shapes, empty-eyed, bound to the queen's will, ghosts of soldiers who had once sworn to protect her. When Kyle approached, the air grew heavy with cold. A whisper brushed his ear, though no mouth had spoken. "Why come to the cursed one?" Cale looked up at the towering gates. "Because I have nothing left to lose," he said quietly. The gates opened without a sound. Inside, the air smelled of metal and forgotten prayers. Silver chains hung from the walls like dead vines, and torches burned without smoke. Cale followed a long corridor until he reached the throne room, a vast space carved of black stone, its ceiling lost in shadow. There, upon a throne of glass and night, sat Queen Seraphine of Ilarion. She was a woman of stillness and sorrow, her crown tarnished and her eyes colder than the moon. Her beauty was not warm, but distant, like the reflection of a star in a frozen lake. Every movement she made was precise, every word measured, as if the weight of centuries rested upon her shoulders. When Kyle entered, he dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "I seek work. I ask for no gold, only a place to belong." Seraphine tilted her head slightly, studying him. "There are no knights here," she said. "Only servants and silence." "Then I will serve," Kyle answered. The queen rose from her throne, her long black gown whispering across the floor. She walked slowly toward him, her footsteps echoing like a heartbeat in an empty cathedral. When she stopped before him, Cale could see the faint shimmer of magic around her, the aura of one cursed by her own crown. Her voice was soft but carried power. "You are a strange man to beg for chains," she said. "What can you do?" "Anything you will allow me," Cale replied. Seraphine gave a faint, humorless smile. "Then you are hired," she said at last. "But the only position left is dishwasher." Cale lifted his eyes. "Then I will learn," he said. "Will you teach me?" Her smile faded. "No one asks to be taught here," she murmured. "They simply obey." "Still," Kyle said gently, "a broken blade must learn to cut again." For a moment, silence hung between them, a silence heavy with something unnamed. Then Seraphine turned and motioned for him to follow. They passed through long hallways filled with portraits of kings and queens whose faces had faded into shadow. The torches dimmed as they walked, yet Cale felt no fear. He noticed how the queen's shadow did not move like her body. It seemed to breathe on its own, whispering across the walls. Finally, they reached a narrow chamber deep beneath the castle. Inside stood rows of silver basins, cold as moonlight. Water dripped from the ceiling, each drop ringing like a bell. "This," Seraphine said, "is the washing hall. Every relic, every plate, every crown that once belonged to this kingdom passes through here. The curse demands it." Cale frowned. "The curse? The castle lives only because I cleanse its sins," she said quietly. "Every night the ghosts of the past return, the echoes of betrayal, pride, greed. If they are not washed away, the castle will crumble, and so will I." Kyle looked at the nearest basin. The water inside shimmered faintly, though there was no light to reflect. He could see strange shapes moving within, faint, ghostly memories. "And now," Seraphine said, "you will help me keep the darkness from devouring what remains." Kyle began his first task that night. He rolled up his sleeves, dipped his hands into the cold basin, and began to scrub an old goblet carved with runes. The moment his fingers touched the metal, he felt a whisper rush through his mind, a memory not his own, a banquet, a king's laughter, a betrayal sealed with a kiss. He gasped and nearly dropped the cup, but Seraphine caught it. Her touch was cool as frost. "Do not fight it," she said. "The relics remember. You must listen, then cleanse." Kale nodded and tried again. Slowly, he began to understand. Each item held a piece of the past, a sorrow or sin that needed to be washed away. As he worked, he saw flashes of a younger Seraphine, smiling, unbroken, crowned beneath a golden dawn. But the warmth of those visions was always followed by darkness. A coronation turned to mourning. A lover's promise broken by ambition. A curse spoken beneath a red moon. Hours passed. Kale's hands ached, but he did not stop. He felt drawn to this strange task, as if by washing the relics, he could also cleanse something within himself. When he looked up, Seraphine was watching him. "You do not tremble like the others," she said softly. Kale met her gaze. "Perhaps I have nothing left to fear." Her expression softened, only slightly, but it was enough to make the air between them change. "Fear keeps men alive," she whispered. "Then maybe I am already dead," he replied. For the first time, Seraphine turned away. "No," she said quietly. "You are too alive. That is why the castle noticed you." "The castle? Notice me?" Kale echoed. She nodded. "It sees what it desires. It hungers for hearts that still beat." A strange chill ran through him. But before he could speak again, the candles flickered, and the air filled with a low hum, like a sigh escaping the stones. Seraphine's eyes widened slightly. "Do not move," she said. From the corner of the room, the water in the basins began to ripple. Shadows gathered above them, forming shapes, faces of weeping men and women, their mouths open in silent screams. The castle's ghosts had awakened. Seraphine raised her hand, and the shadows froze. Her voice filled the room like a bell. "Back to your rest. The sin is not yet forgiven." The shadows obeyed, sinking back into the basins like black smoke. Kyle stared in awe. "You command them." "No," Seraphine said quietly. "I only remind them who they once were." When dawn finally broke, Kyle stood beside her at the balcony. The sky above Alarion was gray and lifeless. The queen's face was pale in the morning light. "Why do you keep doing this?" he asked softly. "You could leave this place." Seraphine looked toward the horizon where no sun rose. "Because I am bound," she said. "By crown, by blood, and by choice. The curse was not forced upon me. It was the price I paid to keep this kingdom alive." Kyle studied her, wondering how someone could bear such loneliness. "Then maybe it is time someone helped you carry it," he said. Her eyes met his again, sharp, searching, but not cruel. "Be careful with your kindness," she said. "It wakes things that should sleep," but Kale only smiled faintly. "Then let them wake." Seraphine turned away, though her voice was softer when she spoke. "Rest now. Tonight, the castle will test you again." Kale nodded, but before leaving, he glanced once more at the basins. The water had gone still, yet as he passed, one ripple formed. He leaned closer. For a moment, he thought he saw his reflection staring back, but then the reflection smiled, though Kyle had not.